Hi there. How's it going? We are back. Alonso, Christy, and Matt.
Hello.
Hello.
We're now going to review a movie that is not my autobiography, but it's called Little. Alonso, tell us about Little.
It's not big, it's little. Okay, so Regina Hall plays the very mean head of a software company who was humiliated as a middle schooler and vowed one day that she would be the boss and she would humiliate everyone else, which is pretty much what she does, most particularly her long-suffering assistant, played by Issa Rae. And one day, Regina Hall is mean to the wrong little girl who waves a magic wand at her and says, "I wish you were little." And the next day, she wakes up as her middle school self, played by Marsai Martin of Blackish, and is forced to re-endure middle school while Issa Rae is trying to come up with a pitch that will save the company. There's a lot happening here. There's more happening than the movie can bear, I think.
I was charmed, though. I laughed a lot the whole way through, and it's kind of made in a slapshod way. Like, it's not edited in the most elegant way, and there are lots of plot holes and questions. Like, as a mom who is currently enrolling my son into a new school, I'm like, wait a minute, how'd she just show up and go to middle school? I had lots of questions. Things like that like stopped me in my tracks. Things like, how is this all taking place in the course of one day?
Wait a minute. Let's be clear. You'll buy that she suddenly reverts to her 13-year-old self.
Oh, yeah,
but you're having problems about, oh, wait, but in this universe, they can also just show up at a public middle school and nobody asks any questions?
You don't just show up. You have to have all kinds of paperwork and proof that you live there. You got to have utility bills. It's really complicated.
This movie, Dave and I were talking about it afterwards, and it feels like it almost feels like it was an R-rated comedy that got shaved down to being like PG or PG-13, because there's a lot of things that seem to be missing. Like there are
with a boyfriend,
whole scenes that seem to be missing. Yeah, like they make a whole big deal of introducing Justin Hartley as the hunky middle school teacher that the girl is flirting with shamelessly because she's an adult woman inside, and then completely abandons him.
Also, how can we ignore that character's name?
Oh yeah,
Mr. Marshall.
Gary Marshall.
Gary Marshall.
That's cute.
That was hilarious.
I hadn't noticed that, but that's cute.
Because Penny Marshall directed.
Yes,
Big.
I get that. Yeah.
Anyway, and so
I didn't get that.
Oh, that was.
I'm hung up on public school enrollment, but I don't get the Gary Marshall
utility bills.
Right. Also, what is Gary Marshall doing teaching middle school in a public school in Atlanta?
There's a scene where Issa Rae and Marsai Martin are out for lunch, and the little girl is trying to drink, and Issa Rae won't let her, and then that suddenly segues into this musical number where they're like
singing to breadsticks,
lip syncing, into
to
breadsticks.
Mary J. Blige.
And it's like, wait, how did we get from this part to this part? Like, there are chunks of this movie that feel like they're missing. All the Office shenanigans seem not particularly fleshed out. I was reminded of how in 48 Hours they put in Annette O'Toole and her relationship with Nick Nolte, basically a sort of insurance in case Nolte and Eddie Murphy didn't have chemistry. They'd have something else to cut back to. But since Nolte and Murphy did have chemistry, Annette O'Toole pops up in 2 scenes and then you never hear about her again. It's like, well, then why have her at all? This movie feels like they threw a bunch of stuff in there because they weren't sure what they were going to keep, and none of it flows together very well. I'm thrilled that there's a movie with 3 black women in the central roles, and those 3 black women are all hilarious and super talented. Like, Marsai Martin is a movie star.
She's 14 years old, and she conceived this at age 10.
She's hilarious.
She's brilliantly funny. Issa Rae is great. Regina Hall, obviously absent from the movie for a long time, but she's really good too. But this is such a mess.
It is a mess structurally, but I laughed enough the whole way through at big things and little things. Haha. There's a bit where, Regina Hall is just an awful human being, and she just terrorizes everybody in her office. Like, she takes one woman and shoves her in a rolling office chair, just shoves her, and the woman just falls and it gets shoved into a corner. There's enough ridiculous little things like that I laughed at the whole way through. But yeah, you're right. There are a lot of leaps in logic and a lot of questions. Even for a body swap comedy, there are a lot of things that don't necessarily add up. Marsai Martin has just amazing timing, an amazing presence and a wisdom beyond her years. And she has a first look deal with Universal at this point. She has an office.
Good for her.
Yeah, no, she's great. And of course, Regina Hall is always a pro. Issa Rae can do so much with just like the slightest deadpan throwaway line. I did consistently want a smarter material for them, but they make gold out of what they are given.
Out of dross.
Yeah.
There is a trans joke early on, which even if it's meant to establish Regina Hall as a terrible character, felt
So I saw.
With the kid.
Yeah.
Wait, I don't really remember that. I saw people mentioning it on Twitter. Will you remind me what it is?
It's early on when she's insulting the neighbor and the neighbor's kid, and
yeah. Oh right, yeah.
Yeah, and
across the hall.
and it's just sort of like because even in the nature of like we're showing this is a terrible character, it just doesn't land right. It feels very. I mean,
there's a way to show that she's mean to children without doing that.
Yeah, so that didn't sit well with me. But even beyond that, yeah, it is fairly consistently funny throughout. There are a lot of things that land, and like I said, those three performers are great. But the script just drove me nuts because it's like they don't really see through the whole Office part of it with any kind of way to make it relevant to the other stories. There's this whole thing where the girl takes the three outsider nerds and like gives them these fake Instagram lives so they'll be cooler, but they all skip school to do it, and then that's never brought up again, and no one seems to notice. And
that's the day that's like the very long day where they really cram in a lot of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Like a million things are happening, and the sun still hasn't gone down.
Jordan's day off.
Yeah, and the thing is, the movie starts with like a deadline. Like we're told they have 48 hours to land this pitch because the guy's going to come back in 2 days, and anyway, this sounds like it's nitpicking, but in the moment, it just feels like it reminds you that the best comedies are clockwork, are tightly precise, and like they there's a lot of intricate screenwriting going on, and this just feels so sloppy. It made me very unhappy.
How much does it matter that the thing that ultimately is the app, like the idea for the app? How much does it matter that that's just a completely stupid idea?
That didn't help, but I've seen a lot of, after watching a lot of Hallmark Christmas movies with a lot of stupid fake apps in them, that just kind of rolls off my back.
I guess it's irrelevant, but...
I've worked at companies that produce dumber apps.
Okay.
So.
But again, it does sort of underscore.
To be clear, I'm not talking about where I grew up.
No,
heavens
no. Mm-hmm. The movie, it's like obviously it's about a woman and her inner child, but they like nail that that they hit that on the head with a hammer so hard so many times. It's like, yes, we get it.
I like this a lot better than you guys, and I think partly it had to do with the star power and chemistry, especially of Issa Rae and Marsai Martin, because they worked so well together, and I think there's very few young actors that you would conceivably buy that, because like the body swap stuff, a lot of times you've seen it at least with teenagers, right? Like Fred Savage, I think pulled a little bit of that in the movie he did, but you definitely, maybe whatever that one was.
No, vice versa.
Vice versa.
Know your body swap comedies.
Right. And there's a little bit of that. I mean, Lindsay Lohan pulls it off in the Freaky Friday remake relatively well, but Marsai Martin comes into this, and I've got no doubt that is Regina Hall's character in that. Like she really, she carries herself with an authority and kind of a take no prisoners attitude that comes, she wakes up that way and you buy it. And I was really impressed with that. And then I also was really impressed that Issa Rae, who manages to take what would otherwise be this thankless role of, playing kind of second fiddle to the adult in the kid's body, and she makes that her own, and she makes it funny in a way that works really, really well. And you see a little bit of her character coming out and capitalizing on this situation in a way that, like, when we saw, what was the Taraji P. Henson movie where she wanted to be the agent?
What Men Want.
What Men Want, right? And, like, her assistant in that one, like, still...
The gay BFF.
The gay BFF, like, he wasn't all that funny. Like, he doesn't... That actor, now granted, it's a different set of writing, but Issa Rae,
I was going to say, yeah,
comes in. I got the sense that there's probably a fair amount of improv that was happening, at least during rehearsal and on set. And, does that distract in the movie? It does, but I was okay with that. Where it really starts to become a problem is, it almost felt like there were 6 or 7 pages, maybe a couple pages to wrap up scenes or plots that got left out because when the movie wraps up, you're like, wait,
there's
there's
a big climactic talent show where she sort of gets to make up for the time that she was embarrassed as a kid, but it's so thrown together, you don't understand what's happening, why it matters, and what the impact of it is. It's a mess.
Well, and then there's the thing about like the big, what happens at the end with the account, and it's like, wait, what? Like it all just like it comes together too easily.
There's a big speech that wraps it all up.
But by that time, like I'd had such a good time. Yeah. It was almost as if like, oh guys, we're gonna hit 2 hours. We're gonna wrap this up, right? Like, you know what? I mean, okay, that's like, fine because it was enough of a good journey that I was willing to put up with that end. So I had a good time in this one, and I found like the mess of an ending a bit forgivable.
I don't know. I think what made it more disappointing was the fact that the good stuff is so good. Those 3 women are so funny in this, and there are moments where they really nail what it is they're trying to go for. But to get to those parts, it's so all over the place that I just found it really frustrating. Tina Gordon directed Peoples, which I thought was actually a pretty funny movie, and the woman who co-wrote it with her did Girls Trip, and like those are much more solid films and more solidly structured. And this one, I feel like either the script or the editing needed at least one more pass because this is a hot mess.
So what's your number?
I said 5.1. I wanted to like it more, and there are parts of it that I do like, but I just sitting through it became an ordeal.
I'm saying 6.
So you're saying it's twice as good as Hellboy? Because your Hellboy score was a 3. I'm saying that this is more than twice as good as Hellboy because I'm giving it a 7.5.
Okay, our number is a 6.2. It is at 52% on the tomato meter.
That's too low.
It's fun.
I very much want to see what Marsai Martin does next, but this is...
Sits in her office collecting her money.
Not going to school.
Exactly.
All right, so Little, maybe see it.
Thanks for watching. Like this video here on YouTube and subscribe to our channel. You can also subscribe to us in all the podcast places where this show also exists. And of course, naturally, you can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at BeFastAllDay. Thanks for watching.
Thanks. Bye.